He could have stayed silent, but he didn't. When everyone was busy talking about scandals and secrets, Miles Wei wrote one message, just one, that silenced the noise and melted millions of hearts. What did he say to Shen Yue, and why did fans around the world call it the most beautiful goodbye they've ever seen? It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a denial. It was something far rarer, pure friendship, the kind that still exists in a world obsessed with drama. In the fast-moving world of fame, friendships are often lost in the chaos of rumors and headlines. But sometimes, one message can remind us what real connection looks like. Miles Wei and Shen Yue's bond began years ago, long before hashtags and trending topics. They met as co-stars, two rising actors trying to find their place in an industry that never sleeps. Behind the cameras, they built something special. Laughter that didn't need an audience, and trust that wasn't for show. Fans saw it too. The way they supported each other during interviews. The way they laughed off awkward moments, or how Miles always defended her when criticism came her way. They weren't lovers, but they shared something that many never find, even in love. Then came the headlines. Suddenly, everyone was talking about Shen Yue and Dylan Wang again. Rumors of reconciliation, secret meetups, soft smiles caught by paparazzi lenses. The internet went wild. Some celebrated, others doubted. And somewhere in that chaos, a few fans whispered, "What about Miles Wei?" For days, his silence was louder than words. People waited, expecting either bitterness or heartbreak. But when he finally spoke, he gave the world something else entirely. It wasn't through an interview or a staged post. It was quiet, poetic, timed perfectly, like the calm after a storm. He wrote, "Some friendships are too beautiful to end, even when life writes different stories for us. I'm proud of you, and I'll always wish you happiness, wherever your heart takes you." Those words spread like fire, not because they were dramatic, but because they were real. They carried grace, strength, and peace, three things this world rarely sees together. Within hours, his message trended across social media. Not for controversy, but for kindness. Fans across China, the US, Europe, and beyond reposted it with captions like, "This is what maturity looks like." People cried, shared, and reflected. Some said it reminded them of the friend they once loved, but had to let go. Others said it was a lesson that you can care deeply without claiming ownership. And in that moment, Miles Wei unknowingly changed something. He turned gossip into gratitude. He made silence powerful again. It takes real strength to celebrate someone else's happiness, especially when the world keeps comparing you. But Miles didn't compete. He didn't throw shade, he didn't post cryptic lines. He just showed what grace looks like. Those close to him say he's always been this way, quiet, grounded, thoughtful. The kind of man who doesn't chase headlines but leaves a mark with his words. And maybe that's why his message felt different. It wasn't just to Shen Yue, it was to everyone who's ever had to say goodbye and still wish someone well. Because sometimes love doesn't end, it just changes form. It becomes respect. It becomes silence. It becomes hope. But then something happened that made fans pause again. Hours later, Miles edited the post and added one more line. It said, "Some stories don't end. They just change location." Fans froze. What did he mean? Was it symbolic, a poetic touch, or was it something personal between them? Did it mean their friendship continues quietly, far from the noise of social media? No one really knew. Some fans believe that line was Miles' way of saying that even if they no longer share the same screen, their story continues, in memory, in respect, in silence. Others saw it as a message to everyone, that endings aren't always sad. Sometimes they're just transitions. Whatever he meant, one thing became clear: people weren't talking about scandal anymore. They were talking about sincerity, about how rare it is to see a man celebrate a woman's happiness without ego, about how refreshing it was to see a friend choose peace over pride. Even Shen Yue noticed the shift. Those close to her say she was quietly touched. She didn't write a long reply, didn't turn it into a spectacle, just a heart emoji and a line that said, Thank you for always believing in me." It was short, but to fans it said everything. Two people who had shared a journey, closing their chapter with kindness and mutual respect. No drama.
No sade, just peace.
And that's when the internet fell silent for a moment. Because in that silence, there was beauty. Two souls reminding millions that not all goodbyes are painful. Some are peaceful. Some are necessary. Some are simply love evolving. But that wasn't the end. Days later, fans began noticing something interesting. Miles Wei liked to fan edit a short video showing clips of him and Shen Yue laughing on set, mixed with the words, "Real friendship never fades. It only grows softer with time." That small action reignited the warmth. People began resharing it again, calling it the softest love story ever told. Not a romantic tale, but a human one. One fan wrote, "In a time where everyone wants attention, Miles Wei showed us that love can exist in silence, that friendship can be louder than gossip." And maybe that's the real story here. Not who's dating who, not who moved on first, but how a few honest words reminded millions that kindness still exists, even in fame, even in heartbreak, even in goodbye. Miles Wei didn't lose anything by speaking from the heart. In fact, he gained more, the world's respect. And Shen Yue? She gained a reminder that true friends never leave. They simply cheer for you from afar. If you've made it this far, maybe you understand what Miles meant too. That sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about letting go with peace in your heart. And if stories like this remind you that real emotion still exists behind the fame, take a second, hit subscribe. Because here, we don't chase gossip. We chase truth, emotion, and the beauty hidden behind every story. Miles Wei didn't just write a message. He wrote a lesson. He reminded everyone that closure doesn't have to come with bitterness. That endings don't always mean failure. That silence can sometimes speak louder than promises. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere out there, Shen Yue smiled as she read his words. Not because they carried sadness, but because they carried peace. Because they came from someone who meant every syllable. In a world full of noise, that kind of silence means everything. Because real connection doesn't fade when the spotlight dims. It lives quietly, in the heart, in memory, and in the quiet wish for someone else's happiness. Miles Wei's message wasn't a goodbye. It was a gentle reminder that the truest kind of love doesn't demand to be seen. It just is. And maybe that's the secret behind his words. Sometimes friendship means letting go with a smile. And sometimes that smile is forever.